Have you ever had someone twist your words so badly you started questioning your own memory? Yeah, it's frustrating, and it happens way more than you think. One minute, you're making a simple statement, and the next, you're defending yourself against something you never said. And the worst part, the more you try to explain yourself, the worse it gets. It happens all the time, in relationships, at work, and especially online. People twist words for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes to manipulate, sometimes just because they weren't listening. Either way, you don't have to put up with it. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to shut it down. Not just with quick comebacks, but with strategies that put you back in control without getting dragged into pointless arguments. But before we get to that, let's talk about why this happens. Because when you understand the psychology behind it, you'll see the manipulation coming before it even starts. And trust me, you'll never look at certain conversations the same way again. Ever had someone completely misrepresent what you said, and no matter how much you tried to correct them, it just kept getting worse? Maybe you walked away wondering, how did this even happen? Well, it's not an accident. There's actually a reason people do this, and a reason you get caught up in it. Some people do it for control. The moment they twist your words, they set the direction for the conversation. You're no longer discussing what you meant. You're defending yourself, and that gives them the control. Others do it because they can't stand being wrong. Instead of owning up, they shift the narrative to make you look like the problem. And then they're the ones who thrive on emotional manipulation. They don't actually care what you said. They care about how you react. And if they can get you upset, they've won the power dynamic. And here's the part most people don't realize. Your own brain helps them do it. When someone twists your words, your brain doesn't just hear what they said. It processes what it thinks they meant. That's why people can genuinely believe you said something you didn't. And then emotions take over. When someone distorts your words, it feels like an attack. And once that fight or flight response kicks in, logic goes out the window. The biggest trap? The need for validation. Most people hate being misunderstood, and manipulators know that. The moment you start explaining yourself, they've already shifted the power in their favor. See how this works? This isn't just someone misunderstanding you. This is a strategy. And if you don't know how to counter it, you'll be stuck defending yourself forever. But don't worry, there's a way out. And in just a little bit, I'm going to explain to you exactly what to say when this happens, so you can shut it down immediately. You've probably been in this situation before. Someone twists what you said, and when you call them out, they act like you're imagining things. They make you second guess yourself. That's gaslighting, and it's one of the most infuriating manipulation tactics out there. It starts off subtly. You say something simple. Maybe you express frustration. Maybe you set a boundary. Then suddenly, the other person is acting like you're the one who started the problem. For instance, you say, I said I was frustrated about what happened. They say, wow, so now you're saying I'm a terrible person? And just like that, the conversation is no longer about your feelings. Now you're stuck defending yourself against something you never even said. That's the whole point of gaslighting. It makes you question your own words, so the real issue gets buried. So how do you stop it? You refuse to play their game. Here's how you shut it down. Try saying this. That's not what I said. Let's stick to the actual conversation. Short, direct, no room for debate. The moment you start over-explaining, you lose control. If they keep pushing, go even simpler. You can think that if you want. I know what I said. And if you really want to make them uncomfortable, pause before responding. Silence is powerful. And people who manipulate hate when you don't take the bait. It might feel awkward standing your ground at first, but once you stop letting people twist your words, you'll notice something. They'll stop trying. Manipulation only works if the other person reacts. If gaslighting doesn't work, manipulators have another trick up their sleeve. Instead of making you doubt yourself, they twist your words into something extreme, something so far from what you actually said that you're left thinking, how did we even get here? That's a strawman argument, and it's one of the most frustrating things to deal with. Let's talk about how to shut that down next. For instance, you said, I think we should spend less on takeout. They say, oh, so you just want us to starve? Seriously? That's not even close to what you said. But now you're stuck defending yourself against a position you never even took. And here's the worst part of this. The more you try to explain what you actually meant, the more power you give them, because now you're playing their game. So how do you stop it? You don't engage with their fake version of your words. You bring it back to reality fast. That's not what I meant. Let's not twist this. Simple, direct, no room for them to keep spinning the argument. If they double down, keep it even shorter. That's not what I said. Let's stay on track. And if they keep pushing, call it out for what it is. You're arguing against something I didn't say. No explaining, no justifying, just shutting it down. Strawman arguments only work when you feel the need to defend yourself. The moment you stop playing their game, they lose control of the conversation. And if that doesn't work, some people will flip the entire conversation around on you to avoid taking responsibility. They flip the entire conversation back on you, so you're suddenly the one being questioned. It's called blame shifting, and it's one of the most manipulative conversation tactics out there. Well, let's talk about how to stop that next. It usually happens when you bring up a legitimate issue. Instead of addressing it, they turn it around to make you feel guilty for even bringing it up. For instance, when you say, "I felt hurt when you didn't text me back," they then say, "Oh, so I have to check in with you every 5 minutes now?" Hold up. What just happened? You started this conversation to talk about how you feel, and now you're defending yourself against something you never even asked for. That's the entire point of blame shifting, to make you the problem so they don't have to own up to anything. And most people fall for it, because once they shift the blame, the conversation is no longer about them. It's about you defending yourself. But you don't have to play that game. Here's how you shut it down. You say, "This isn't about me right now. Well, let's talk about what actually happened." That response instantly refocuses the conversation. If they keep pushing, you double down. You're changing the subject. Let's stay on track. And if they still won't stop trying to flip it on you, call it out for what it is. "I see what you're doing, and I'm not playing that game." Once you stop engaging in their blame shifting, they lose control, because they can't escape accountability if you refuse to be distracted. And if blame shifting doesn't work, some people will go for one final desperate trick. They'll take your words completely out of context and tell others a totally different version of what you said. That's called selective quoting. And if you don't catch it, it can completely change how people see you. Let's talk about how to handle that next. At this point, they've twisted your words, exaggerated your point, and even tried to flip the conversation back on you. But what happens when they take it even further? When they deliberately misquote you and tell others a completely different version of what you said? That's selective quoting. And it's one of the most damaging tactics, because now it's not just between you and them. It's about your reputation. Maybe you casually said, "I didn't enjoy that movie as much as I thought I would." Then later, you hear them say to someone else, "They said they hated the movie." Or maybe during a conversation, you said, "I don't think that approach works for me." Then suddenly people are looking at you weird because they heard you don't support the team. And now you're stuck defending something you never even said. This is intentional. People do this to damage your credibility, turn others against you, or make you look unreasonable. And the worst part of this, the more you defend yourself, the more guilty you look. So how do you shut it down? You expose the missing context immediately. You should say, "Context matters. Don't leave out the rest of what I said." If they keep pushing and double down, you should say, "If you're going to quote me, at least get the full sentence right." And if they're doing this on purpose to damage your reputation, call it out. That's an interesting version of what I said. Now, let's talk about what I actually said. By handling it this way, you take control of the situation without looking defensive. Instead of arguing, you make it clear that they're the ones distorting the truth. And that's the key. You don't need to prove yourself to someone who's twisting your words. You just need to call it out and move on. Now, let's take it a step further, because the real power move here, not letting this stuff get to you at all. Let's talk about how detachment is the ultimate way to stay in control. So now you know exactly how to respond when someone twists your words, but let's keep taking this a few more steps further. Because here's the real secret. The most powerful way to win these interactions Stop letting them get to you. Think about it. Why do people twist your words? They want control over the conversation. They want you to feel confused, defensive, or guilty. They want a reaction. But what happens when you don't react? They lose. And that's where detachment comes in. The moment you realize you don't have to correct every lie, clarify every misquote, or defend yourself against bad faith arguments, everything changes. Instead of feeling frustrated, you start seeing these tactics for what they are. A predictable game played by people who don't want to take responsibility for their actions. And the best way to win? Stop playing. Next time someone twists your words, instead of reacting, pause. Let them sit in the silence. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Then, if you do respond, keep it short and detached. You might try saying, "You can believe that if you want," or maybe, "Think what you like," and then maybe this. That's one way to look at it. Notice something? These responses don't argue, don't defend, and don't engage. They shut the conversation down completely. Because when you stop needing to prove yourself, you become untouchable. And that's the real power move here. You're not just learning how to respond to manipulation. You're learning how to stop it from affecting you altogether. So next time someone twists your words, remember, you don't have to win the conversation. You just have to stay in control of yourself. And that's a skill that'll serve you in every conversation for the rest of your life. So here's some more tough truth. You'll never stop people from twisting your words. But now, you don't need to. You know how to shut it down when it happens. You know how to refuse to play the game. And most importantly, you know that you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. And that's the real power here. Not just having the right words, but knowing when you don't even need to respond. Because at the end of the day, people who twist your words want control over your emotions. They want you to argue, to explain, to defend yourself. But now you're untouchable. So tell me, what's the worst way someone has ever twisted your words? Drop it in the comments and let's talk about it. Because once you've mastered shutting down word twisting, the next level is handling feedback like a pro. Even when you shut down manipulation, you're still going to deal with criticism. Sometimes unfair, sometimes harsh, sometimes meant to bring you down. So how do you handle it without getting defensive? That's exactly what we're talking about in this next video. Click here and I'll see you there. And remember, you don't have to win every conversation. You just have to stay in control. Thanks for watching. I'll see you online soon.